Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. In several of my videos, I've discussed the importance of creating vocabulary lists that don't just contain individual words like comer, to eat, but also useful phrases, sentence fragments, grammatical formulas, and idiomatic expressions in Spanish. These are the things that are going to really propel your Spanish because you can just pop them together in real time to get your sentence out and keep up with conversations. Well, several viewers have asked me to share my vocabulary lists with them. Problem is I don't have any vocabulary lists anymore. Once you reach a certain level in the language, you just don't need them. And, that's where I'm at, which is good, right? I mean, that's where you want to be. You don't want to be having to, check lists for the rest of your life. But even if I did still have vocabulary lists, I could give them to you, but I don't think it would be very beneficial to most people. And the reason is that vocabulary lists are more effective when you create them yourself. It's a very personal thing, and it's part of the learning process. Your lists will follow your journey through learning Spanish. You're creating these lists in the order you're learning the material, unless you're hitting the alphabetize button, which don't do that. I don't recommend you do that. List them in the order you're learning them. And another thing about these lists is that you're choosing what you think is valuable. Like when you watch my videos or someone else's, or you read something, you're like, I think that's useful, and that's what you're adding to your list. Well, if I gave you my list, it's what I thought was valuable in the order I was learning it. It's not going to be that effective for you. So now do you see why I say you should create your own lists? Well, the question you may have now is, how do I find the information to put on my list to begin with, Paul? People have asked me that, so that's why I know some of you may be thinking that. Well, that's what I'm going to be showing you in today's video. You didn't think I was just going to leave you hanging, did you? No, I don't do that. Let's talk about those grammatical formulas I was talking about. If you watch my videos, you know that I like to break the language down into little grammatical formulas that I can easily remember. I can add them to my word list. Well, back when I had a word list. And an example of that would be one I just covered, llevar, which means to carry, plus time expression, plus the gerund. Llevamos 2 años estudiando español. We've been studying Spanish for 2 years. That's an example of a grammatical construction. Well, you can get those from watching my video because I do break them down that way. You can also go and start to study grammar on your own, which I recommend. Back when I was learning Spanish, I got most of my grammatical constructions from this book, not particularly this version. This is the 6th version, the latest. I got it from the 2nd version. It is a new reference grammar of modern Spanish, and I bought the latest version when I started doing these videos because I wanted to see how it improved, and maybe I was going to learn something else. And it is a phenomenal guide. The way I would use this book typically is, if I wanted to learn about the gerund, right? I would go right to the chapter with the gerund, and it's broken down by categories, and I would kind of read through what's useful. And it would cover things like the verb I just talked about. Llevar plus the gerund, or ir plus the gerund. And then I would decide what I thought was useful, what would fit into my Spanish and my needs. And that's how it would make my word list. I would do that with all kinds of things, from indirect and direct object pronouns to the preterite, or different ways to remember things. But I was getting them from this book. I think it's a fantastic book for anybody who's studying. It's one of those books that can be useful the entire time you learn a language. It's not like you're going to read it and be like, well, I have no use for this ever again. You can keep referring to this. It's fantastic. If you do decide to get one, I do have a link. It's a US Amazon link in the description section of the video. I'd appreciate if you used it. Just helps me out. It doesn't cost you a dime extra to do that, but it does help me. So now let's talk about phrases. Where are you going to get these phrases from that you're going to stick on your vocabulary lists? Well, let's go to the computer for this one because I'm going to show you, and we're going to start at one of my favorite sites, Wordreference.com. Wordreference.com is more than just another online dictionary for Spanish. It is a phenomenal resource. So if you don't know where to start with this, I would suggest starting with one of your mega verbs. Examples of mega verbs would be dar, tomar, tener, echar, and poner. And if you want to just start with those, you're going to get tons of material to keep you busy most of the week. So let's go ahead and type in dar. Now right here on top, you'll be able to hear any word you look up, which I like.
Dar.
So you'll see different ways that dar is used. Here in this one, it can actually mean to teach, right? And there's some examples of that. You might find that useful for your word list. You come down here to additional translations, and you're going to start to see phrases pop up using that verb. So as you go through these, you're starting to see what you would find useful. Here's one, dar a conocer, which means to publish or make something public. I like dar a conocer. I use it from time to time, and it's one that appeared on my word list back in the day. Come down here, dar a la prensa, to give to the press, leak to the press. Maybe you find that useful. Dar a luz, to give birth. Yeah, that one's super useful. That should be on your word list. But it's up to you what you find useful. And if you see a word like you have dar alcance, and you're like, oh, what's alcance mean? I can click on that and see. Let me go back to dar. Take a look at this. You are not going to run out of material anytime soon. Now, one of the things I really like about Wordreference.com is that when you come all the way to the bottom, a lot of material, huh? All the way to the bottom, there is a forum section, and people are asking different questions. You'll kind of see how the headings look. For example, this looks like one where people are asking about different ways to say frightened or scared, one of them being dar miedo. So yep, it's somebody from Russia asking if these different types of expressions, if there's any difference in them. And you have somebody answering who's from Spain. It's always good to pay attention where the person answering is from, because you'll often see in these forums people from different Spanish-speaking countries having different answers. And I say this over and over, Spanish is not uniform across the board. So, you know, if you're focusing more on Peninsular Spanish and you see that people from Spain are answering a certain way, that can help you better refine your word list so you're speaking more Peninsular Spanish. I'm not going to walk you through all the mega verbs today, but let's just take a look at another one real quick, just poner, see what we come up with. Again, we can listen to it.
Poner.
That's always nice. And just scrolling, just visually scrolling down, you're going to see poner, ponerse in the reflexive. People have questions about that. And tons of expressions with poner. There's plenty to keep you busy just with these two verbs today. All right, what we're going to do now is leave wordreference.com open. We're going to open a new tab, and we're going to look for locuciones. Locuciones are set phrases in Spanish. They may be sentence starters. They may be found in the middle. They may be expressions. Super useful. So when you look up locuciones, you'll find plenty of material. Let's just go right here to 50 ejemplos de locuciones, 50 examples of locuciones. As you can see, the site is entirely in Spanish, but don't let that intimidate you. So there's different types of locuciones. You have ones for adjectives, adverbs, etc. Tons of them here. And here's an example of one that would be an adjective. Me compré ropa de segunda mano. Second hand. Now that's pretty common words, right? De segunda mano. You may have already known those without looking them up. But let's say you're not sure what that means. You're just going to pop over here to wordreference.com, start to type de segunda, whoop, right up there on top, de segunda mano, second hand. Here's some examples with it. And if I have some other questions about it, maybe I can find it down here in the forum. Right here, we have adverbial. I really like the adverbial ones. Their example, don't know how useful it'll be for you. Their example is, el delincuente le disparó a quemarropa. So you have a quemarropa, and if you don't know what that means, you can't tell, because literally it means to burn clothes. You may already be able to guess what it is. We can just paste it in here, pops right up, and it means at point blank range. Now, when I was a law enforcement officer, that was one of the ones on my word list, but maybe it's not one of the ones on yours. Like I said, I really think the adverbial ones are useful, so why don't we just look for that? And you can do this as well. So we look up locuciones adverbiales. And we get some different articles. What are they? That could be useful to you. Yep, it's giving different examples here that you can also look up. That could be useful. Let's see. Different types. I like to look for things that have types. I want a lot of examples. This one looks like it's broken down pretty nicely. I like this. So here are some adverbial phrases of time. There are several in here I use. I use a menudo. And again, if we don't know what a menudo means, we can copy it and stick it in. It means often or frequently. I like a menudo. It was always on my word list early on. Some of the other ones that were on my word list: con frecuencia, frequently, de repente, suddenly. We come down here. We have some adverbial phrases of place. A lot of useful stuff here too. A la derecha, to the right. A la izquierda, to the left. So when you're giving people directions to the bathroom, that's going to come up a lot. As you can see, there are plenty of things that you can look up, see if they fit your Spanish, and if they do, add them to your word list. Another useful thing you can look up is conectores. Right here on top, we have 100 different connectors. That's useful. Oh, here's 500 connectors for writing different texts. That's super useful. Keep in mind that these sites aren't generally made with people learning Spanish in mind. They're made for Spanish speakers who want to write better and, want to boost their own vocabulary. So I like this one because it's broken down in a list. Your first category is to give the idea of cause. A causa de, because of something. Another one I like that I use is dado que, given that you have something over here para iniciar un texto. So as you kind of read through, a propósito de, you're like, I wonder what that means. Well, they deactivated the copy part. I hate that. So we're actually going to have to type it in, no problem. A propósito. Oh, popped right up. Concerning, regarding. Could be useful. It even gave me another expression that says the same thing, acerca de. So this is how I would recommend that you not only build your word list, but you actually get better at Spanish every day by just doing this on your own. Working through the investigative process to learn these expressions, and they're going to stick in your head better. Well, that's it for the video. I hope you gained a few tips to help you build your own vocabulary lists. If you enjoyed it, just do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.